Sneaky Steve, welcome to the Nullified Tech channel. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Look at me. Actually, I gotta do my part. I gotta look the part. I just found this. This is the Red Heart Foundation. I always try to promote something good. So I just gotta wear this. Gee, I look like a Japanese warrior, don't I? It's supposed to be.
Amazing. Yeah, you do actually. You do look
There you go.
like a samurai warrior on the channel. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Okay,
So
carry on.
give people a little bit of an idea. Well, you can't put that on and not tell us. What is the Red Heart Foundation for? Give them a bit of a shout out since you've got it
Oh, I
on.
see. It's really all about having a healthy living, keeping your heart going and strong and vibrant and all that kind of stuff, especially for old age people like me. I'm 3 scores and 3 years young now, My birthday was 3 or 4 days ago. I don't know. It's part of dementia, You
You
lose
don't
these.
look it. You probably get it all the time, but you look like you're still like in your early 40s.
Oh,
Look
thank
at
you
least
so
20
much.
years younger.
Gee, if you were a girl, I would marry you straight away.
um, yeah, 100%. Listen, Sneaky Steve, so happy to have you on the channel.
Okay.
We were so excited when we saw that you were going to come back for Heroes versus Villains, but we had the shock of all shocks when we saw that you were in the Villains tribe because we thought you'd be a hero. How did you respond to being a villain out there?
I don't know. Well, actually, it was my bloody fault. I thought I'd be better in the villains tribe because I can get away with blue murder. I mean, I'm trying to kill people every so often, and so I asked the producer, hey, put me in the villains so I can show off what I really can do. And yeah, in a sneaky way. That was the original plan, but that didn't work out. George got in the way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, George got in the way for a lot of players this season. You weren't the only
Sure did.
person.
Yeah.
So how surprised were you to see your fellow villains out there? Some of those were players that you've played with before, and Shawnee. What was your initial sort of reaction to landing on the villains beach and finding out who were in the same tribe as you?
Well, I was hoping for the likes of Shawnees and the best, some of the more players that I've admired, in Australian Survivor, people like George and even Mark Wales also, and Dave. I was hoping, but George got in, so I was happy in some ways. In other way, I thought, oh gosh, he's going to be a danger to everyone, so we need to just get rid of him as quickly as possible. But Shawnee was there because there's a bit of a history behind that. But I was so happy also to see Jackie. She was also in my first season, if you know, right? Jackie Glacier. And
Yes.
she's a really nice dear mom to me, basically. She hasn't got any kids, so she adopted me, basically, But then that didn't work out, She did something crazy in the first few days or so, and oh well. But
Yeah,
I'm
really
happy.
disappointing. Yeah, to see her go out that way. We wanted to see her have a fighting chance, and obviously, it's never
I
fun
know.
to see people going out on these challenges so early on. Were you surprised to get the call back for Survivor after this long? You've sort of been outside of the Survivor circles. What was your initial reaction when they phoned you to say, "Hey, Stevie, do you want to go out there and
Oh,
do this thing again?"
I was ecstatic. I thought I deserve a second chance in so many different ways. I got snuffed out so early, but that's my own bloody fault because I didn't know what I was doing then. But after a certain time, you get to see how things move on and how things are done. I thought I should try getting back in again. And what I did is just the old wardrobes that I wore in 2018, I kept it in a box and I labeled it for my return. And it
Nice.
did happen, you see. And so I wore the same wardrobes, essentially, for this season. And,
Yeah.
it brings back a lot of nostalgia in so many ways. Especially seeing Shawnee and Jackie there, that makes a big difference for me.
So what you're saying to me, Sneaky Steve, is I need to select my wardrobe before I go out there and write on their future Survivor player and champion before I even go out, and then I can manifest it, and it may become true.
You are so right. It's no difference to you going into the bathroom every day to brush your teeth, and then you see in a mirror, you see yourself, and then you see an affirmative, like statement saying, "I'm going to go into Survivor," right? Same sort of stuff. That wardrobe remind me about coming back to Survivor. That
Well,
box.
Steve, it feels like there's still unfinished business for you because you got very close to the merge this time. You got very close to the jury. Is third time the charm in the works for you? Is that something that you'd still want to go out there? Do you still feel like you've got something to prove out there?
You know what? put the wardrobe, all my clothing back into the same box, and I was thinking of making a different statement after that. You know what? There are a lot of great talents out there that I've met in the Survivor fandom, and there's a
Mm,
lot of people there who's so eager to get in, and regrettably, most will not get a chance. You're only
yeah.
24 contestant. So I feel really terrible if I try to go for a third time, because these people are just going to miss out. And really, we need some fresh blood. There must be an apprentice George out there, or even apprentice Nicky Stevie, to go out there. So I would say no. I think I better hang up my buff. But unless it's one of those all stars, favorite versus fans kind of stuff, yeah, why not? But if it's just the ordinary folks out there, we should give them a fair go. I think that's what.
I totally agree with you. I actually did a
Mm,
video on my channel pretty recently that said, do we need returning players in the next 3 seasons? And I don't think we do. I think the next 3 seasons bring some new legends and make some new
mm,
legends in the game. But then in the future, I've got the Survivor South Africa cap on that says Return of
yes,
the Outcast. That was their last season. That's the
yes,
theme I see you coming back in, because Return of the Outcast was pre-merge tribe versus a merge tribe. And it was one of the
yes.
best seasons we've seen in a very long time. And I feel like, Sneaky, if there's ever that type of season, you should be out there and hopefully,
It's so true.
keep training.
It's an amazing. You got to be in it. You got to be like, feel it, because the unfinished business thing, in your brain, it really sap your energy if you don't do something about it. It's
Mm,
so obsessive to some of us, and we need to just get it done eventually. Yeah,
yeah.
I felt for that. Yes. Well, we'll
So
see
so
how.
let's get a little bit into this game of yours. You land on the beach there. You see Shawnee. You're wanting to get her out very early on because she was a part of the blind side in your first season, but you had to like shift gears quite a few times because it looked like Shawnee and Liz, from what I saw as a viewer, got in really good with the boys, and the boys wanted to work with her in those early stages, which meant you had to sort of wait on that plan a little bit. What was those early dynamics like between the Shawnee, the Liz, the Simon, the Geordies, who you're trying to work with as well? And why was it so difficult to make a move against Shawnee early on? Because for us as fans looking at it from the sideline, we think to ourselves, Shawnee and George, easy decision. They've got to go first. They're the biggest threats in the game.
Yes, absolutely. Well, earlier on, I was in observation mode. I was trying to get some intel, and although I know about Shawnee and George, but I was more interested in all the newbies. I want to get to know them, and
Mm,
and and create some kind of bonding as much as I can, mainly to neutralize all the returning players who should know what they're talking about, and what to go about, and how to create some form of tactical overview. You see what I'm saying?
mm,
So I I only at the beginning I only realized that Shawnee wasn't really a big threat. In my humble opinion, it was George I was very concerned about. So I was trying to figure out a counterforce, and I found that in the likes of Geordie and Simon. And I thought this is the best way forward, is to try to create some kind of an alliance with these two guys, and from there grow it, and then add a bit of spice, add the girls into the team, particularly Jackie. But as you know, she went out a bit earlier than we expected. That was my original plan, and I want to stay under the radar, as in the first few days, just getting the feel. There's got a rhythm in the tribe, you see. And also, there was also another complication in that we pretty much starved for 3 days because we couldn't get the fire going. It was so damp, and so it was a struggle. Some of us, Liz was struggling so much as well. She was starving to death essentially, and
yeah.
moaning and groaning, whether she's sleeping or not. Like, it was pretty tough in the first three days, I say.
I can imagine. Like, listen, I don't think it'll be easy for anyone that's not. We're not. None of us are used to being out there in the wild without the comfort of our own home, and a nice fridge that you can go to go get a snack if you need it,
Yes.
or stay warm in the evening. Question for you, and this might be a hot topic one, but obviously George, he gets injured very early on in the season. He ends up leaving the game. He's not at the first vote. How do you think things would have turned out if George was there? Do you think the momentum was there early enough to take a big player like him out? Or do you think that, him sort of getting injured, it's never a good thing for anyone, but it was a little bit of a
Look,
saving grace for him in that first round?
secretly, I was hoping he'll come back. After that incredible medical episode. No, I want him back because it would be a hollow victory if George didn't turn up back. Right, I really wanted to make that move early myself to remove him out of the game completely. So I was actually stoked, happy to see him back. And
so to
really,
rephrase that question a little bit, do you think he would have been in danger if he was back before Tribal Council? Do you think there was momentum early on to go after a big player like George?
Actually, timing wasn't quite right because it takes a bit of momentum to create some kind of a force against the might of like King George. No, I think he'd be safe even at the early stage. People are still trying to get the feel of the gameplay at that time. They didn't quite appreciate the nature of George. And most of his allies were on the hero side. People like Haley and Flick and all that. So if they were on my team, I'd say they're growing force that can remove him, but not so early. He was very clever. He's a very clever person in that sense.
100%. Yeah.
Managed to keep the dynamics within his sphere of control.
So you mentioned that you tried to form this alliance with both Geordie and Simon, and then try and bring in some of the girls to take out George. Now, obviously, we know that didn't work out so well. What do you believe? What was the biggest weakness of that alliance? Why did that alliance not stay together? And obviously, we saw some of it play out on our screen, but behind the scenes, what sort of prevented that alliance from taking control of that tribe?
Yeah, well, behind the scene and behind my back, it all went pearl shaped when Geordie decided to work with George. And that was a blindside for me. I didn't know he was doing all that maneuvering behind our boys' lines. So when Operation Anaconda was hatched, we were just ready to get him. If everybody does what they're told to do, which doesn't happen in Survivor, by the way, George would have been out. With the benefit of hindsight, I would think that way. So, but unfortunately, people like Fraser also were very easily swayed the other way, and he actually suffered the consequence thereof later on. Now, I think what happened there, it was just when one decide to do something different, the entire plan is sunk quite easily. So you got to be very certain if you want to get rid of such a big character like George, everything works. I did try, but I didn't realize Geordie was already sleeping with the enemy, if you know what I mean.
No, 100%. And obviously at that tribal council, that is when a lot of things come to a halt, and you've got George probably in what I think is one of the best tribal councils I've ever seen on Survivor. I don't give that credit easily. Sort of forcing Simon's hand in regards to playing an idol, what he thinks is an idol, on you. What was it like sitting there and seeing this all play out in real time? Because obviously we get a snippet of it on the TV screens.
Yeah, look, one thing the audience would never appreciate is the intensity in the air. You can cut it with a knife. It was so tense, so amazingly, you don't know what's going to happen next. But if you think about it, that's George Plan B, because we didn't expect to have an immunity challenge in a tribal council. As far as I recall, it's the very first time ever been done in the whole goddamn world, right? And so, and in that immunity challenge, of all people to win it, it's Simon.
Yes.
That was George's first, he was his first priority to get rid of. Because these two had this incredible dynamics, love-hate kind of stuff, for days on days on days, and we all had to put up with that. So we thought, okay, let's end it here. But it was something that I wasn't. It was incredulous to me because I was looking at George. Is he kidding? Is he just playing or whatever? And especially when he used me as his prop to challenge Simon. And then it just dawned to me halfway through all that that drama that maybe George was trying to do something different. Um, you know what I'm saying? And it worked out to me later on that I realized maybe I wasn't the bunny after all, and it turned out to be that way. Yes,
And
but
you did something earlier that day that was very interesting. You went to George before that tribal council and you butted him up quite a lot, talking about how good of a player he is and how much you admire him.
Mm.
On the podcast, I had a theory, and I'd like for you to tell me if I was wrong or not. I thought you played it up a little bit for strategy. Was that the case there? And did it sort of work in your favor
Absolutely.
going into that tribal council? Yeah.
Yeah, Chris. Look, if you if you are likely to be on a chopping block on that day, right? Before we walk into tribal council, I can feel it. People treat you a little bit differently, and that's how I felt. Something strange with Geordie and Fraser. These two were acting a bit funny, and I couldn't figure it all out. And I felt, just for insurance and for leverage, it's time to butter up George. And what I said to him was actually the honest truth. That was my impression of him. I do admire him a lot. I saw him in his season. That guy will go a long way. Just unfortunately was cut short at the end. And as I said, I recognize him to be the biggest threat. So I just say all what I have to say to create some kind of understanding between him and me then and there. And that kind of like work in many different ways, because if it's a choice between Geordie, Fraser, and I was thinking that George would not, take me out, and that's actually did what happened. And he did acknowledge it, I think, from memory in the tribal council, that he recognized my sharing my feeling about him, help him decide his final, movement on that.
So obviously you get saved. You move over to the Simon side, move away from the Simon side of the alliance. You start working a bit more with George, and you get into a new tribe with him. There was a few times there where Simon tried to get messages across to you. There was the whole Operation Destiny, the triangle that he said that they should do. Can you enlighten us, the audience, a little bit more about that? Because I think a lot of that happened off screen. We didn't see when that was discussed, the initial Operation Destiny.
Yeah, because you understand that, in an hour and a half episode, so much to be squeezed. That's quite a lot out there that could have been put on air, but physically impossible. Look, what happened was that during the early days when we were being massacred by the Heroes tribe, because we don't have the mass that they do, and we kept losing and losing, and the morale in the villains tribe was just so low. We could be below my toes, actually. That's how I feel. And so what I try to do is try to create some kind of happiness within the tribe, some positive vibes, and I do it by helping them out with things like doing a bit of Tai Chi in the morning. It's not really Tai Chi, it's Taekwondo, but different anyway. Just and meditation and mindfulness exercise, and try to create some kind of laughter in a campsite. So in the morning exercise, usually I end up with this symbol here, right? It's a triangle, and it's actually I use that in martial arts to visualize my destiny, my desired outcome, and I shared that among the my tribesmate. So this is your destiny. You're going to win today, aren't you? That kind of stuff. And that got stuck, and everybody knows about it. And Simon took it to heart that this must mean something spiritual, something more important than just a symbolic icon or something. And it became an important element in the Villains tribe, and it was also adopted by the boys, as as part of their gamemanship. And
Yeah, interesting.
and because the heroes didn't know anything about it, so it was a good thing to signal to me what they're on about. And Simon always wanted to maintain that connectivity with me. I felt he's got a sense of guilt about what happened, in that epic tribal council, and he wanted to make up for the appearance that it looked like he's not with me. And so that is the link between me and the other tribe, through Simon, essentially, as
Yeah.
as we progress on.
Did you, when Flick and I believe it was Maddie came over to you to have a conversation about potentially flipping with you, did you actually consider it due to that? And what was it like, after Simon did sort of turn against you? Were you still open to working with Simon after that?
That was to me was a great moment, because all the signs were there, the triangle, the the metaphor with respect to the stars in the sky and all that kind of stuff. And my gamemanship was to stick with George, because I knew he's going to hang in there basically until merge. That was the whole plan, actually. And then to swap over to the other side, in order to get rid of George. I've been trying to get rid of George. Nothing personally. If you're looking at this, I'm still your mate.
I think, listen, if George was angry at everybody that tried to get rid of him at some point, I think he'd be angry at everyone, Stevie.
Yes, but the thing is that what everyone don't realize is that if you stop up, that's it. You're dead meat as well. So at that time when they approached me, it wasn't the right timing, because it was so close to, almost to merge. And and George, he is an amazing poker player. Not many people know about this. So there's two things about George. One, he's a political animal. He literally is. He was with the Labour Party.
So does he talk a lot of politics out on the island?
Oh, to me it does, because I'm also political animal, but from the other side. So I like to have a bit of banter with him. So I got to know a lot, and I got to know a lot about him in terms of his political nuance, like his stratagems and his tactics, which I find quite complementary to mine. So where else he's very good at strategy, I was very good with tactics. Like especially in the challenges, get the numbers right. And he confirmed it with me all the time. Anyway, that's the side digression there. And so what I was just, where am I?
So you were saying things people don't know about George. He's very political, great strategist. I think you were going on about a few of the behind the scenes.
Yes, well, in addition to that, he's an amazing poker player. I played poker with him and with Jackie and him at one stage after the fact, right? And he's able to read people's mind and people's body language. So, and I felt that when I was on the island with him, and I felt if I give him the wrong signal, even just a slight body a twitch to my eye or something, gotcha. I said, okay. So I had to play cool all the way. But I was also intrigued with what the other sides are up to. I was trying to get some intel that I can pass on to our alliances, because I don't want any surprises on our side of the game, you see. And that's why it was an amazing kind of, I guess, affirmation that things are moving in the right direction as far as my gamemanship. Because, if that's what they're talking about is true, then come merge, then I can actually make my way to remove George. It's an obsession that I had to keep to myself. And I need to shout out when I go to the well, that kind of stuff, that I don't want to tell people too much, because George is a very sensitive guy, like he can see all this coming.
Yeah. So it's interesting because there's a point in the game where they have to make a decision, right, between yourself and Matty. And the way that the show sort of portrayed you was that you were smoke and mirrors, you were looking for votes or doing certain things that potentially wasn't there, and the show made it look like they went for Maddie because he was the safe option. And if you look at how the show played out, it almost looks like the right decision because Matty never rocks the boat. He does what George wants until the end. If you had to take yourself out of it, do you think now in hindsight that for George's game, he made the right decision? Or would you have been loyal to George still after the merge as well? What was your plans if you were to get there? Would you have rocked the boat a bit more than Matty?
No, as it turned out, that would have been a good decision for George if you look at it from a strategic perspective. Simply because I was going to turn against him anyway after the merge, as I shared with you. But his decision there was confounding to me. Not that he gunned for me rather than Matt. Simply because George wasn't George himself. If he were being accosted by Liz, on hindsight, he would have no bar of that. He would just let he would make the rest of us vote against Liz and get her out because his authority is at stake, and then he would make it a show of lesson to the likes of Shawnee. Don't ever muck around with me. That's going to be the result. But he didn't do that. He was one of those moments of weakness of George where he had to do what he think he had to do, and there's no other person other than Matt or I to choose from. Jerry is extremely loyal to George, and George knows it. He's got that in his bag. And the only thing that he missed out was the tactical, viewpoint that come from me after I'm evicted out. But in all, I think George did make the right decision, as it turns out, and he was right about Flick. And in fact, there's really no one to blame, but there are somebody that I would like to say and commend, and that's Flick. How she managed to convince those two girls,
Agreed.
right?
Yeah.
That was a great gamemanship, and it got me out of that. I have nothing but commendation for what she did. It saved her. It gave her a couple more days, basically, until they figure out what she's up. So that
was
was
interesting you mentioned that, Stevie, because after her first season, there was a lot of talk out there that if she made the final in that first season, she would have won based on her social game. And I feel like seeing this play out for the first time as a fan, I saw what social game people were talking about because to go up against George toe to toe and to be able to outfox him in a way to stay in the game to get to the merge was absolutely beautiful to see. Did you feel like in some ways you were strangely still involved in the season after Liz won? Because Liz won based on this move where she went against George and she spoke about that at the end, which, I found it interesting because for me as a student of the game, it showed me that it's all about the way you sell the move to the jury. Because in hindsight, Flick was the wrong move, but it showed that Liz was her own person on the island. And that was enough to get her the vote to win.
Yeah, well, I must say, with all honesty, that Liz did finish very solidly. Her last few miles was fabulous in everything, in every respect. Not just gamemanship, not just tactics, not just strategies, not just winning the last challenge. She did everything just beautifully. I mean, it's by the book, and if any Survivor fan who wants to get into it, you should learn from Lee's final few days of move, right? But from my observation, when I was there, Liz was struggling, not with the human dynamics, but more about Survivor. She was in, I must say, and this behind the scene, but it's true. She was in hunger pain for days on days until that pain subsides, which is around 15 days, right? Then the body will do something different. She couldn't stand it. She was so hungry, And because she's an athlete, she's lean and mean and hardly any
Fast
fat in her.
metabolism.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And and I felt she wanted to quit that early because she just couldn't handle it. So in some way, my relationship with her is centered on keeping her motivated, as I tried to motivate everyone else. And it wasn't in the cut, but I did everything for her, from free massage to doing her hair, and even I made a comb out of off-cut
Yeah.
bamboo for her, and for Flick, because girls, they get jealous. And
Yeah.
so she's an amazing lady to
Mm.
be able to finish, given that she suffered at the very beginning. And like all athletes, she has amazing patience, better than St. Pat's. And she also has this mental faculty that I've never seen before. I've seen her in enduring challenges where I was involved as well. And I said, wow, she'll do well after merge, because after merge is less physical challenge, more of the endurance type. And
Mm.
that's, I, I got a funny feeling she's going to get this if she plays the card right. And she
Now,
did.
Stevie, Steve, she did, and congratulations to Liz. It was a very impressive finish. But you talked about fans, and you talked about people that look up to players like yourself that are in the game. I've got a big fan of yours, my co-host Mucky, waiting to come onto the show.
Hello, Sneaky Steve.
Mucky,
Oh,
Mucky,
oh,
you gotta be gentle with me. Don't smother me with too much love. I'm trying to.
He's going to get a big head before you know it. He's not going to talk to anyone because you're going to give him too much love, Mucky.
yeah, exactly. But honestly, like everyone talks about Island of the Idols, Boston Robert, Sandra. I reckon they should make an Island of Idols of you, Sneaky Steve. I've been a big fan of you ever since
you.
2018. I've messaged you quite a few times on Instagram
Yes,
as
yes.
well. Yeah, I love everything you do, mate. Yeah, you're
Well,
fantastic.
thank you. You can see I was having a blast. I was having fun. What's the
Yeah,
point of going to the island and be miserable, right? And even
yeah,
though you keep
exactly.
losing challenge after challenge, and you don't have much food, come on,
Mm,
guys, lighten up. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Eh?
Yeah, listen,
exactly.
and that's one of the questions I actually have for you is you had these light moments there, you had fun moments. What's the moment, that you're going to remember for the rest of your life out on the island that was maybe shown or not shown on the screen?
Well, funny enough, it's a serious moment where I became very close to the like of Maddie and Jerry, but that wasn't actually highlighted in the edit. But it was extremely close. I can't explain it. It's just somehow we connect, and sometimes that amazing energy, and um, that romance kind of feels. And then the funny thing about it is, after it's all said and done, to this very day, we mates. I've stayed at Jerry's place. I stayed at Maddie's place. Got to know their family and everything else. And the thing is that I find it uncanny, because it's more of a spiritual connection than friendship. Because friendship takes ages to flower, right? Just
Mm.
with Jerry and Matt, it just happens all of a sudden. So there must be a spiritual dimension. That's something I can share with you guys. That's really did happen. Mm.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've had the opportunity now to talk to and interview quite a lot of survivors. Like I've had Survivor US players on the show. I've had a lot of
Yes.
Survivor South Africa. I'm from South Africa originally, so I've got
Okay.
that connection. And then I've had quite a few Australian survivors on the show as well. Mark Wales, who you spoke highly of from the beginning,
Yes. Yes.
such a big
Brilliant.
supporter of
Yeah.
this channel and just a legend of a guy outside of the game. He's done a lot for the podcast behind the scenes, so I'm always appreciative of that. But one thing I've noticed, Stevie, is that with the players that get selected, they're all genuinely interesting and dynamic people because the show want to cast those kind of people. How
Yes.
difficult is it when you're playing the game? You sit at home and you think, it's all about me winning. I'll easily cut people when I'm out there. But when you get out there, you suffer together. You meet these very charismatic people out there. How difficult is it to blindside and stop the dreams of these people that you've grown closer to on the island?
Yes. It's true. It's so true. I guess when you're there with them, uh, chopping woods and getting coconut out of trees and all that kind of stuff. if funny enough, you start to bond with them. You're starting to get really to know them and empathize with them, and feels like, wow, I don't want to get you out because like you're a good guy. Like they're really good guys and girls. They really are. Well, most of them are anyway, for that matter. Well, we had two funny ones, but anyway, that's another story. So it is awfully hard, and so what I have to do is just take the emotion out when it all happened, and that's why I'm okay with the way how I turn out in the game. You got to switch off the emotion. You got to look at the overall mission, the strategy. I look at milestones. I need to make, I got to beat my last time I was on Survivor. And then I got to get past stripes, swaps, and then the next one was merge, which didn't work out. But those kind of
Third
milestones.
time's the charm. Sneaky Steve, third time's the charm. You'll get there. I've got no doubt. All you need is for Mucky to also be out on the island with you, and you'll have your first alliance member. Mucky, you've got Stevie here on. Go ahead, take over.
Oh, okay. Well,
let's go.
Okay,
What was it like? What was it like coming back? When I saw you, like rumored to come back, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to see you come back. Then when your little bit intro came out as well, I was like, there's no way my boy Sneaky Steve is coming back. So how did you feel, like being able to come back on a Heroes versus Villains thing?
No words can describe it, Mucky. I was just more than ecstatic. I was wetting my pants. I had the severe bout of incontinence, it just goes on and on. I was just spraying everywhere, basically. No, I can't describe it because I felt that I guess the producers got a lot of faith in what I can show, and it's not just for the purpose of getting me to get up to become sole survivor, but they see the value in me. They see the way how I connect with other people, and the people that on the other side of the screen, the audience, in my first season, and I just like making friends and being engaging with everybody, and I just can't help myself. I say things, I blurt it all out. Then my brain realized, oh, did I say that? That's where all those one-liners come from, because I just said it, as it goes. It just ran away. I couldn't take it back, after a while. So yeah. Yeah.
Do you watch the Survivor US and other seasons as well, or are you predominantly Australian Survivor?
No, I do every so often watch. What I love right now is actually the last South African season was fabulous.
So you know exactly what this is when I showed you the Return of the Outcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah, because I was just going to say you almost remind me a little bit of Yam Yam, who's playing in the current Survivor US season, where he's the same. He's just he's like a bundle of energy. He says what he thinks, when he's out there, similar type of thing. And I think that's why the producers asked you to come back, because even when myself and Mucky spoke about that before the season started, we said, as a game player, you haven't gotten to that hurdle of getting to the merge yet, but as a personality on the show, you're a legendary tier personality. Like there's only one Sneaky Steve, and there will also only ever be one Sneaky Steve on our screens in Australian Survivor.
You blame that on my mum and dad.
Steve, you're one of the sneakiest Survivor players ever to exist. What was the most sneakiest thing you've done on either of your seasons?
I've always been very sneaky in so many different incremental ways. I couldn't think of one that highlight, what I did that make me so sneaky. But I've always tried to create some kind of distrust and mistrust among the people around me, and through misdirection of some sort. And I honestly, Mucky, I can't think of one particular episode where I was extremely sneaky. But just by my persona, I tried to sneak around.
What was your thinking of Benjamin when he got into the tribe? Because they were calling him sneaky as well. Was there a battle between you guys for being the most sneaky out there? Or, why do you think Benjamin was perceived this way?
Well, Benjamin was, Benji was a guy who, I guess his strategy is to be sneaky more than to create alliances. And that provoke a lot of attention on him that's unnecessary, really. Um, when I went into his tribe in the heroes camp, I find him a bit, like sneakily untrustworthy, whereby I'm sneakily trustworthy. People still trust me, but I sneak around behind them, and some of the sneaky movement is really just to gather intelligence from the others by pretending to be something I'm not really, right? Momentarily, and that seems to work. Whereby Benjamin, he does it pretty much head on, front on, and that's a difference. And so he's straight onto everyone's radar, whereby I can sneak along just under the belly, like kind of stuff. That's how it's about. So,
Which of the new players that played this season do you think, like we said, next 3 seasons, you're in agreement, we need to create some new legends. We don't want to see players come back. But 3 seasons onwards, if the producers had to look at the newbies cast from this season, who do you think deserves that callback to come back and play again? Who do you think has got potential?
I think Fraser's got immense potential. He just regrettably he was, innocent bystander in this particular season. But I reckon Fraser would go out there. It just regrettably he didn't make some of the moves that he made quite sneaky too. In the way how he play one against the other, the boys and the girls and all kind of stuff. That wasn't highlighted in the when it finally aired, but that's because he was cut short. You see, yeah, I'd say Fraser should be given a second chance, easily.
All right, Stevie, we're getting close to that cutoff time for you now. So I've got one last question for you. How would you like to be remembered by the fans of this show? What if you were not to come back? What would you like your legacy to be like on the show?
Oh gosh, I guess it's a tough question because
I ask all the tough questions, Stevie. I should have warned you before you came on the podcast. I'm going to give you the tough ones.
Oh my gosh,
it's hard to. I think it's hard to take yourself out of it, and because there's so many people who watch the show, and it's hard to know how people would have received you. My opinion and what I see online from my side, and I'm not Mucky. I know Mucky would blow smoke up your ass. I'm just saying it as a general Survivor fan. I think you're very loved. I think everybody loves you out there. You're a beloved character on the show. But you were out there. You put your heart and soul into this thing. So, what would you like your legacy to be like? What would you want people to remember from you, basically?
It's tough to answer that, Chris. When you're asking questions about my own personal opinion about myself, I just can't do it. It's just not me.
Get it.
Like I'm happy for Mucky to say what he think I am. Then maybe I can frame
it.
Oh,
Mucky, as a Stevie fan, give us what's your opinion? What's your take on Sneaky Steve's legacy, which is yet to be determined because we know he's coming back for that Return of the Outcast seasons, pre-mergers versus mergers. Yes. But Mucky, what is his legacy currently?
Well, I was actually just thinking while you guys were talking, Stevie, you're casted on the Villains tribe, but I actually think you're one of the biggest heroes of the season. It was such a surprise to see you come back, and every moment you were on. Like one of my favorite moments of the season was when Michael got voted out, and right before you said, if you want loyalty, go get a dog. I'm bored of laughter.
Yeah.
And also Stevie versus Sean. We haven't even spoken about this. You and Sean, you're right. That Stevie, I'd take my hat off for you. I would have been scared to step up against that guy. He's massive.
Who are you talking about?
Sean. You continuously went up against Sean at the challenges. I was very impressed by that.
I know that, but I'm a martial art practitioner, so I always pick the big boys because they fall quite hard when they do fall, and but Sean done it. When I get to know him, when I met him in Melbourne, eventually. He's a gentle giant. He's just a nice guy. I want him to be really, a footy player who's very aggressive. He's nothing like that. He's a good guy. So, I find that. Tell. Yeah. Mucky, what you talk about is one of those moments where my mouth went ahead of my brain. So I didn't know why I said that. But it became an iconic one-liner. I understand that. Yeah. But truly, at that time, you're looking at if you got three elements to consider when you're playing Survivor, you got trust, right, loyalty, and faith. Don't go for loyalty because there's no such thing as loyalty because you have to betray each other eventually. So that's why I say go get a dog because I know dogs are loyal. That's why I said that. I didn't mean to say it in such a crass way.
Stevie, we love you. You're always welcome to come back to this podcast. Maybe in the future when we talk about the next season, if you ever wanted to come and just have a chat about the new season and the funny characters we've got on our screen, there's an open invitation to you. But for now, where can fans find you? What are you up to currently? Is there places that they can follow you?
Well, actually, physically, I still do a lot of bicycle riding, delivering food for just everybody in Sydney, and that's where they can find me. Sometimes I get out in the street. Yeah. I also have my Instagram posts. As if you want to reach out to me, I almost always answer everyone, even all the critics. I don't mind that. I do also have my Sneaky Stevie merchant stuff, which I'm going to close soon. If you want a piece of me, you can go there. It's an Etsy account. You'll find it. Just look for Sneaky Stevie. And what else there? You'll see me soon. I can't tell you. Maybe I let the cat out of the bag. I may end up in another reality show. That's all I can say.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sneaky Steve for The Bachelor?
I'm not saying anything.
No, it's amazing. I can't wait, Stevie, to see you on this new reality TV show. I know there's a lot of people like myself and Mucky that will be excited to see you back on our screens. And I'll get the link for the Sneaky Steve merchandise from you afterwards, and we'll put it in the description with your Instagram and everything, so people can go and go and check it out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, look, thank you for having me. I'm having a blast just talking to you guys. And Mucky, now I see your face. Now I know what you look like.
Finally,
it's been amazing, Stevie. We've really enjoyed it. I feel like I could have talked to you for a lot longer, but I know I want to try and stay as close as possible to the agreement we had. But we'll definitely get you back on in the future as well.
Love to. All right. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, guys.